Harvard University President Claudine Gay is facing increasing pressure to resign in light of allegations that she plagiarized portions of her doctoral thesis while studying for a PhD at Harvard University in 1997. The allegations were brought by Manhattan Institute senior fellow Christopher Rufo. Rufo claims to have identified over 40 instances of plagiarism in Gay's work. He claims that Gay's actions serve as further evidence of the failure of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at Harvard and academia at large. Given Rufo's stated academic credentials, including a master's degree from Harvard University, and his extensive work on education policy, his allegations against Gay have been treated with the utmost seriousness, including by the mainstream press. But are Rufo's allegations credible? Is Rufo truly interested in the integrity of academic research at Harvard? Or is he a bad actor who's engaged in misconduct of his own? Rufo laid out his allegations against Claudine Gay in a post on his Substack, December 10, 2023. Rufo begins by presenting an excerpt of Gay's work below the original source material, accusing Gay of passing it off as her own paraphrase and language. Rufo concedes, however, that Gay does provide a reference to the original authors, and a cursory read of the text makes clear that Gay is summarizing the work of others. Rufo's primary contention is that Gay's text lacks quotation marks, saying this constitutes a clear violation of Harvard policy. Rufo's second allegation contends that Claudine Gay plagiarized the scholar Carol Swain. He again places Gay's text below the source material, saying she copies the phrasing and language nearly verbatim, though a casual inspection shows this is untrue. Swain's text begins, Pitkin distinguishes between, quote, descriptive representation, unquote. Gay paraphrases this as social scientists have concentrated, followed by an ellipsis in which Rufo removed some of the original text. It continues between descriptive representation. Note that the original source does not use the correct citation format either, omitting the year of publication in parentheses beside the author's last name, making the appropriate citation format unclear. Rufo again contends that the lack of quotation marks constitutes verbatim plagiarism. Rufo's third allegation contends that Gay plagiarized Gary King, her thesis advisor. While Rufo again concedes that Claudine Gay did in fact provide a citation for Gary King's book, and that King was in fact Gay's dissertation advisor and de facto co-author of the text in question, nevertheless, Rufo levels the puzzling accusation that Gay does not explicitly acknowledge that her work is grounded in King's own, and instead passes it off as her own original work. In sum, Rufo's claims of plagiarism against Claudine Gay come down to the use or non-use of quotation marks, accusing Claudine Gay of violating Harvard's own rules concerning verbatim plagiarism. He states that if a current Harvard student were to commit violations of the same nature as Gay's, it would lead to disciplinary action up to and including requirement to withdraw from the college, arguing that the same standard should apply to the university president. A simple Google search shows Rufo is indeed correct with respect to current Harvard policy. However, Rufo fails to acknowledge that Claudine Gay is not a current Harvard student, and that in fact she completed her dissertation at Harvard over 25 years ago, and as such could not be reasonably expected to be aware of Harvard University policy 25 years in the future. Indeed, if we restrict our prior search to before 1998, we find no Harvard websites referencing verbatim plagiarism. Rufo has also pointed out that Claudine Gay failed to follow the APA citation rules in her dissertation. However, Rufo fails to acknowledge that the APA publication manual he cites is the 7th edition published in 2019, whereas at the time Gay's doctoral dissertation was written, the manual was in its 4th edition, which notably provides substantively different guidance regarding in-text citations in comparison to the 7th edition guidelines to which current Harvard students are subject. Given Rufo's refusal to acknowledge substantive differences in the citation guidelines of the 4th and 7th editions, one begins to get the sense that these allegations are not brought in good faith, raising fresh questions about Rufo himself, beginning with his claim of having earned a master's degree from Harvard University. In point of fact, Rufo earned his master's degree from Harvard Extension School, which has open enrollment and is not the highly selective, prestigious Harvard University that, for example, Gay attended. And in fact, there is long-standing controversy concerning Harvard Extension School graduates who list their degree-granting institution as Harvard University, with many prominent voices, including within Harvard itself, calling this resume fraud. Harvard's official policy on the matter is clear. Graduates must list the institution as Harvard Extension School, not Harvard University. Rufo nevertheless misrepresents his degree-granting institution in his biographies for the Manhattan Institute, New College of Florida, where he serves on the board of trustees, and, curiously, a Hungarian think tank called the Danube Institute, all in clear and brazen violation of Harvard's official policy. Given Rufo's multiple ongoing violations of official Harvard policy, and the dubious nature of the evidence he's brought forward to substantiate his allegations against Claudine Gay doing that same thing, it's not unreasonable to wonder whether Christopher Rufo may have engaged in the very misconduct of which he accuses Gay. Thus, I tried to find out if Rufo is a plagiarist. This is Christopher Rufo's Substack. As you can see, there are quite a few posts here. My theory is that the older a post is, the more likely it is to contain plagiarism. So I scroll to the very end of the list and find his oldest post, this one, Fed Up in Seattle. Like a lot of Rufo's posts, this one contains several links to his sources. And so what I'm going to do is go through each link, click on it, and try to just compare the text by eye to see if I can find any instances of plagiarism. Starting here, I land on an Atlantic article that unfortunately is paywalled. Let's go back to the main page, and we click on the second one. Before I click on it, I'm going to just make a note of some of the specific bits of text here that are associated with this source. So for example, 83%, that's a very specific number. And so when I go to this source, that's what I'm going to look for. I'm going to look for the text 83%. So here we find it. 83% were dissatisfied with how the council has addressed homelessness. Let's now return to Rufo's blog. 83% of Seattle voters are dissatisfied with how the council has addressed homelessness. This is verbatim usage of the source. 83% were dissatisfied with how the council has addressed homelessness. This article, published 5 days before Rufo's blog post, cites the same source, but unlike Rufo, it puts the quoted text in quotation marks. Rufo is using the exact words from the source without putting those words in quotation marks. In other words, this is textbook plagiarism. And I found it in the second paragraph of his very first blog post. I saved Rufo's blog post to the Internet Archive to ensure that he can't delete the evidence of his plagiarism. I also checked to make sure that the source page has been archived as well. Note that I only checked less than 1% of Rufo's blog posts for plagiarism, and it would take days or even weeks to fully check Rufo's work for plagiarism, and even such a check would be very limited in value, since we have to trust Rufo's inline citations. He may be plagiarizing sources that he didn't cite, and that a more robust approach to checking Rufo's work for plagiarism would be to use a plagiarism checking tool, such as Turnitin or Authenticate. These tools are frequently used by graduate students and academics to check their work for unconscious plagiarism. Notably, Rufo has access to high-quality plagiarism checking software that was not available to Claudine Gay for the writing of her doctoral thesis. The fact of the matter is that Rufo has committed the same acts of plagiarism that he accuses Gay of. Beyond existing allegations that Rufo is engaged in resume fraud, these new revelations regarding his plagiarism draw into serious question why he is still employed at the Manhattan Institute, a think tank that notably concerns itself with educational policy. Christopher Rufo has singled out Harvard's first black president, Claudine Gay, for attack, saying she's not qualified to hold her position. One would hope that a person bringing such grave, career-ruining allegations against Claudine Gay would at least be willing to live up to the same standards to which he holds Gay. But that is not the case.